Okay, I'm having a very difficult time making a YouTube video today. I don't know why, because this would only be the third video I'm posting on my channel. This is still very new, so I don't know why I'm struggling so much because I have so many video ideas in my head and I just like can't get them out. It's like, oh, it's so annoying. So just bear with me. I'm doing the best I can. I just really want to talk about these three things that I wish I would have known when I started testosterone, because yeah, you never know. You never know what hormones are going to do to your body. Obviously, everybody's journey is very different, but at the same time, it's very similar. I know, wise words from Megan. But because they're so similar, it's really great because there are a lot of places that you can find a good support system. Because, you know, in this political climate and in today's society, it just starts to feel like nowhere is a safe space for people who are not cis, who are trans, who are non-binary, who are on the gender spectrum in a way that people don't get and people are not willing to understand. And that's what's super frustrating. But what leads me to my first, I guess, tip? I don't know. These are like tips and tidbits about, oh my gosh. Okay, if you watch my last video, somebody honked right in the beginning. Clearly, I just had to make these videos with the windows closed because this is not working. Anyways, yeah, so these are tips and tidbits about my journey that have been difficult, but have been learning experiences, which is why I want to share these today. So the first tip that I have for you is joining Facebook groups that have to do with you, to find a support system that is not your friends, not your family, could be your friends if you want, or maybe you have friends who are already non-binary or trans or whatever. But it's a really, really good space when you feel a little bit isolated. My friends and my family personally have been super supportive and super loving. Like, I couldn't even ask for anything better. And I'm super blessed for that because I know that there are a lot of people who don't have that at all. They don't have any support system. And so even though people can be very supportive and very loving, it's still very isolating because you just feel like nobody really truly understands what I'm going through. You know, I'm on testosterone, I feel better, like I feel more balanced, but I also am dysphoric about stuff, and people just don't get that. And some are really willing to learn, but others just aren't, and it sucks, and it's just hard to relate to people. Like, that's how you really bond with people a lot of times, is that you find something that you relate to, and then you talk about that thing, and then you're like, boom, best friends. Sometimes. But that's why these Facebook groups are really, really useful, because they have Facebook groups about whether or not you want, you know, top surgery or bottom surgery. And in those groups, they talk a lot about different surgeons that are all around the world. People talk about their experience with those surgeons, how their health insurance is working out and all that stuff, because it can seem like such a daunting task to start the journey of top surgery. I know that because I am starting the journey to top surgery, and it's very confusing and daunting. And it's just a good place to ask questions about your health insurance or how people's experiences have been. So there's those Facebook groups, and then there's some for like FTM. There is like there's a non-binary social space group. I'll put like if I can't put the links in the description, I'll put like at least the names of these groups. They're all closed on Facebook, so it's easy to kind of keep it private from your family and friends, in case you're still closeted or you don't feel safe enough to be out on Facebook or in public or anything. It's just a good, super helpful and supportive place to be. Even though it's through the internet, it's just like a very useful place. And so people ask all these different questions, they post pictures of themselves, you make friends, and you just relate to one another. And it's so cool because there are people all around the world, thousands of members, and it's just they're very active groups. So definitely go check those out if you have Facebook. It's really, really useful, and just something that I wish I would have known even before I started testosterone, because it's really just good to have a safe space ready to go to when you're in those kind of dark times. So that's what I would recommend. The other thing about those that are really nice is that people are like, oh my, okay. People kind of worry a lot about Facebook being safe. There are a lot of creepers out there. That's just the fact, and it sucks. But what's good about these groups is you have to answer like 3 questions, little short answers. Some will ask you what your pronouns are. Some will ask you what non-binary means to you. what transgender means to you, whatever it is. And that's basically how they decide whether or not you can join this group. And those questions are definitely useful and a necessity, because there are definitely creepers out there, I'm sure, who want to be a part of these groups, who try to answer what non-binary means to them, but they don't even know, so they don't get in. So yeah. So that's what's great about those groups, and I would really recommend joining those. Again, I'll put information in the description below. The second thing is talking to a therapist, talking to somebody who's unbiased, who doesn't know you personally, but is there to listen to you. Obviously, it helps if they specialize in gender or sexuality, but in some places that's like very, very sadly, very impossible to find, depending on where you live. And so if you're in middle school or high school, still living with your parents, and you don't feel comfortable talking to your parents about finding a therapist, try to find a teacher who you trust. Doesn't have to be a teacher, any part of administration, older adult who can support you and who you trust for sure. And you can talk to them and they can help you find resources. Hopefully you should have something at your school, but in some case, oh my God, in some cases that may not be available. If you're in high school, I already said that, middle school, high school. If you're in college, that's what I mean. If you're in college, oh my gosh, your college should have a place where you can go to talk to a counselor, therapist, somebody. If your college does not have that, I don't know. I am very sorry, and I hope that changes, because that, yeah, that's just not good. So I'm really sorry. But in that case, you're older and you have more access to the internet and all that stuff. And so hopefully you can just kind of, if you can't find a professor or somebody who you trust, do your own research on Google. It can be daunting, but that's where, again, the Facebook groups really come in handy, because you can kind of ask people in your area, or kind of dig deeper within your college space to see if there are some queer groups, trans groups, any sort of groups that are talking about, who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, who could help you out. So there are a lot more resources in that way, but hopefully it's more accessible if you're in college. Obviously, if you graduated college and you're moving on with life, or whatever, wherever you are in life, and you're just older, that's what I would recommend, is going to Facebook and going to Google and finding people through that. A lot of people think that therapy is too expensive, or they don't have time, or it's just inaccessible to them. What I will say to that is that you will always find time to go to therapy. It may seem like a trek, it may seem too difficult, and financially it may seem too tough, but it's a thing to do for yourself. It's a great sort of source of self-care, especially when you are on hormones, because all of that is making everything go all crazy, and it just really helps to talk to somebody about it. So I would really recommend it. As for the financial part of it, it's really hard. There have been times where it's like I'm barely able to pay for my own therapy. And then there are times where I'm a little more financially comfortable and it's okay. And there's gonna be ups and downs, but therapists are there to be there for you. That's their job. And most of them, I say most of them because I know that there are some really bad therapists out there, but most of them just have your best interest in mind and want to help you. So it can be a very daunting process of just kind of like looking for one, but you got to start somewhere, and they all do free consultations so you can kind of get a feel for them and see if it's a good fit. And a lot of them have a sliding scale, and that basically means that they'll talk to you about where you are financially, and they'll be able to figure out a good price for the therapy. So that's really, really nice. And a lot of therapists do that, especially the ones that see a lot of transitional age youth. Sorry, I said that really weird. Transitional age youth and like younger adults. It's a really, I don't know, they're very open to talking about a sliding scale. So that is what I have to say about that. Okay, the third thing that I'm going to talk about is just kind of like a tidbit about my journey, but it's been tough, and so I want to talk about this because people didn't really talk about it much when I was doing research for this at all. I didn't hear much about it at all. Oh my God, the third thing that I'm going to talk about is Testosterone does a lot to you in general. It does a lot to you when you're in a relationship, in a serious relationship. And this is something that I kind of want to make a separate video about, but I'm just going to mention here because this is something that I wish I would have known, that it does really affect your partner. And it's something that you need to consider, because even if your partner is cis and they're passing and they can go into a restroom and go into public and not be misgendered, it's still something you need to keep in mind throughout your entire journey. Obviously, they should be supportive. If they're your partner, that's the last thing that you should be worried about, is them supporting you in this journey. If they're not supportive and if they're not willing to listen and understand what you're going through, that is not the person for you, and you should not be with that person. I burped again. Oh my God. So I just wish that I would have known that you have to keep your partner in mind. And I know that sounds kind of like I went into this very selfishly, but I was thinking so much about how testosterone was going to affect me, how it was going to affect my life, how I was going to tell people, all this stuff. And I wasn't thinking about my partner. Obviously, she's been very supportive and I love her to death, and she's just like my favorite person in this entire world. But I know that it's taken a lot out of her too, because there have been moments where I'm a little more irritable than I used to be, or I'm more moody and I don't know how to deal with it. It's like a little boy going through puberty. You know, I'm like super hungry all the time. So then when I'm hungry and we don't have food, I'm angry about it. Obviously, all these things I'm working through by talking to people on the Facebook group and going to therapy. But it's really difficult, and it's something that you have to think about and consider. And it really, really is a good opportunity to work on communication skills with your partner, because you're gonna disagree. Whether one of you is transitioning or not, you're always gonna disagree with your partner sometimes. And this is why I wanna make another video about it, because I have so much to say about communication. But it's just something that I want to put out there as the third thing that I wish I would have known. Because it's important to keep your partner in mind and also your close friends in mind as well. It doesn't mean that you have to be taking care of them all the time, because that's not okay, and there should be an equal, natural way of taking care of each other, right? So that it's equal. But just keep in mind that that's gonna be tough, and you're gonna just need to fail sometimes. You're gonna have moments where you say something, or I don't know, something comes out wrong and it's just not gonna work, and it may cause you guys to fight or whatever it is. But it doesn't mean that you have to get super mad and frustrated about the situation. It just means like this is part of the journey. This is just one of those things that's tough about this whole journey, about being on testosterone and being on hormones. And so just try to remember that there are gonna be bumps in the road that don't just have to do with you being on testosterone or being on hormones in general. Some of those bumps will have to do with the relationship with your partner, and it's just stuff you have to work through. So that's all I have to say. My thing says low battery, so I'm gonna stop it right now. But thank you for watching. Sorry it's all over the place. Maybe one day I'll have the energy to edit these so they won't be so freaking long and rambly with so many car sounds. But thank you for watching. I appreciate the support, and I will see you in the next video.